The mountain air cut through Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison's tactical vest like a cold blade as his 8-man SEAL team moved through the rocky terrain of the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. Each step echoed softly against the granite walls of the narrow canyon they were navigating. Morrison checked his watch. 0347 hours. They had been moving for 6 hours straight, and exhaustion was starting to show on his men's faces. "Contact in 15 minutes, whispered Petty Officer First Class Danny Chun through the comm system. Chun was their forward scout, always 50 meters ahead of the main group. His voice carried the slight tension that came with approaching a high-value target. Morrison's team had been tasked with capturing Khalil Nazir, a Taliban commander who had been coordinating attacks against coalition forces for the past 18 months. Intelligence suggested Nazir was holed up in a compound 3 kilometers ahead, surrounded by approximately 20 fighters. It should have been a routine operation from Morrison's experienced team. The SEAL commander studied the faces of his men through his night vision goggles. Petty Officer Second Class Marcus Rodriguez carried the team's heavy machine gun, his massive frame making the weapon look like a toy. Behind him, Hospital Corpsman Second Class Sarah Williams adjusted her medical pack. She was the only woman on the team and had proven herself in countless firefights over the past 2 years. Chief Petty Officer Mike Thompson, the team's demolitions expert, carried enough explosives to level a city block. His calm demeanor never changed, whether he was disarming a bomb or setting charges to breach a wall. Petty Officer Second Class Ahmed Hassan served as their translator and cultural advisor. Born in Lebanon but raised in Detroit, he understood both worlds perfectly. The remaining 3 team members, Petty Officers Tony Vega, Brad Coleman, and rookie Kevin Park, completed Morrison's carefully selected unit. Each man had been chosen for specific skills that complemented the others. They had trained together for 8 months and deployed together for 6. "LT, we've got movement up ahead." Chen's voice crackled through their earpieces. "Looks like a patrol for tangos with AK-47s, moving east along the ridgeline." Morrison held up his closed fist, and the team immediately froze. In the distance, they could see 4 figures silhouetted against the starlit sky, moving in a loose formation along the mountain ridge. The Taliban patrol was roughly 200 meters away, but in the thin mountain air, sound traveled far. "Williams, Rodriguez, take overwatch positions on that boulder cluster to our right," Morrison whispered. "Thompson, Hassan, move left and establish a support position. Everyone else, stay low and wait for my signal." The team moved like ghosts, each SEAL finding cover among the rocks and scrub brush. Morrison watched the Taliban patrol through his scope, noting their casual posture and lack of proper spacing. These weren't elite fighters, just local militia members probably assigned to guard duty. 20 minutes passed before the patrol disappeared over the ridge. Morrison gave the all-clear signal, and his team resumed their movement toward the target compound. The path ahead wound through a series of steep switchbacks carved into the mountainside by centuries of foot traffic. "Chen, what's your status?" Morrison asked his point man. "About 800 meters from the compound, LT. The terrain gets nasty up ahead, lots of loose rock and narrow passages. Perfect place for an ambush if they're expecting us." Morrison considered their options. Intelligence had indicated that Nazir's security was focused on the valley approaches to the compound, not the mountain path they were currently using. But intelligence had been wrong before, and wrong intelligence got people killed. "Roger that, Chun. Take it slow and report anything that doesn't look right." The team continued climbing, their breathing becoming more labored as the altitude increased. At nearly 8,000 feet above sea level, the air was thin enough to affect even these superb athletes. Morrison could see steam rising from his men's faces as their warm breath met the cold mountain air. Rodriguez suddenly held up his hand for silence. In the distance, they could hear voices speaking in Pashto, the local language. Hassan listened intently for several seconds before reporting. "Sounds like 2 guys complaining about guard duty," Hassan whispered. "They're about 300 meters ahead, probably smoking cigarettes and talking about their families. Morrison made a decision. Chun, Hassan moved forward and neutralized those sentries quietly. No gunfire unless absolutely necessary. Rest of the team, maintain position and provide overwatch. Chun and Hassan moved forward like shadows, using the rocky terrain to mask their approach. Morrison watched through his night vision as the two SEALs closed the distance to the Taliban guards. The operation required perfect timing and absolute silence. 8 minutes later, Chin's voice came through the comm system. Sentries neutralized. Path is clear to advance. The team moved forward and found Chun and Hassan dragging two bodies behind a large boulder. The guards had been taken out with knives, quick, silent, and effective. Morrison checked his watch again. They were making good time and should reach the compound within the hour. Good work, Morrison told his men. Let's keep moving. The final approach to Nazir's compound proved more challenging than expected. The path narrowed to barely 3 feet wide in some places, with steep drops on one side and vertical rock walls on the other. Morrison's team had to move in single file, making them vulnerable if they encounter resistance. LT, I can see the compound, Chin reported from his advanced position. Looks like intelligence was accurate. Stone building, maybe 40 feet square, with a smaller outbuilding attached. I count 6 guards visible on the perimeter, probably more inside. Morrison studied the tactical map on his GPS device. The compound sat on a flat area carved into the mountainside, with steep approaches on 3 sides. The only easy access was from the path they were currently using, which meant Nazir's men would be watching that direction. Chun, fall back to the team position. We'll move up together and establish overwatch before making our final approach. When Chun rejoined the team, Morrison gathered his men for a final briefing. Okay, listen up. The compound is approximately 200 meters ahead. Based on Chin's reconnaissance, we're looking at 6 to 8 guards outside, unknown number inside with our target. Morrison spread out a hand-drawn sketch of the compound layout. Rodriguez, you, and Williams will establish overwatch on the ridge overlooking the compound. You'll have clear fields of fire on the entire perimeter. Thompson, you'll take Coleman and park around to the east side and prepare to breach the main building. He pointed to different positions on his sketch. Chun, Hassan, and I will approach from the south and neutralize the perimeter guards. Once the outer security is down, Thompson's team will breach and will move in for capture. Questions? The team shook their heads. They had executed similar operations dozens of times, and each SEAL knew exactly what was expected. Remember, Nazir is to be taken alive if possible. Intelligence needs him for information about upcoming attacks. But if it comes down to him or one of us, you know what to do. The SEALs moved into their assault positions with practiced efficiency. Rodriguez and Williams climbed to an elevated position that provided clear sight lines to the compound. Thompson led Coleman and Park in a wide flanking movement to approach from an unexpected direction. Morrison, Chun, and Hassan moved directly toward the compound's main entrance, using the shadows and terrain to mask their approach. Through his night vision, Morrison could see 2 guards standing near the compound's main gate, their attention focused on the valley below rather than the mountain path. Overwatch, this is actual, Morrison whispered into his radio. Do you have visual on the target area? Affirmative, actual, Williams responded. I count 6 guards total. 2 at the main gate, 2 on the roof of the main building, and 2 patrolling the perimeter. No movement inside the buildings that I can detect. Morrison checked his watch. It was nearly 0500 hours, and dawn would begin breaking in less than 2 hours. They needed to complete the mission and begin their extraction before daylight made them visible to enemy reinforcements. All teams prepare to execute on my mark, Morrison said. Thompson, are you in position? Affirmative, actual. Ready to breach on your command. Overwatch, do you have clear shots on all visible targets? Roger that, actual. Rodriguez has the rooftop guards, I have the gate guards. Both perimeter patrols are currently in the open. Morrison took a deep breath and checked his weapon one final time. His team had trained for this moment, and he trusted each man and woman completely. All teams, execute, execute, execute. The assault began with the whispered sounds of suppressed gunfire from Rodriguez and Williams' overwatch position. Both rooftop guards dropped silently, their bodies falling backward onto the flat roof. Simultaneously, Chun and Hassan moved on the gate guards, eliminating them with knife attacks before either could raise an alarm. Thompson's team approached the main building and placed breaching charges on the wooden door. The small explosion that followed was barely audible above the mountain wind, but it created a large enough hole for the SEALs to enter quickly. Morrison and his assault team moved through the compound's main gate and approached the building. Through his earpiece, he could hear Thompson's team clearing rooms inside the structure. Room 1 clear, Coleman reported. Room 2 clear, Park added. Main room clear, Thompson said. No sign of primary target. Morrison felt his stomach tighten. If Nasir wasn't in the main building, he was either in the smaller outbuilding or had already escaped. Both possibilities were bad news for the mission. Check the outbuilding, Morrison ordered. Hassan, interrogate any survivors. We need to know where Nasir went. Hassan approached one of the wounded Taliban fighters who had been inside the compound. The man was conscious, but bleeding from a gunshot wound to his leg. Hassan spoke to him in Pashto, his tone urgent but not threatening. He says Nasir left 3 hours ago, Hassan reported. Went down into the valley with 4 bodyguards. This guy doesn't know where they went specifically. Morrison cursed silently. Their intelligence had been hours out of date, and now they were in enemy territory with nothing to show for their efforts. Worse, the sound of the breaching charge and gunfire had probably been heard by other Taliban units in the area. Thompson, finish searching the outbuilding, Morrison ordered. Everyone else, prepare for immediate extraction. We're blown and need to get out of here fast. Thompson's team found documents and electronic equipment in the smaller building, but no sign of their primary target. They gathered what intelligence materials they could carry and prepared to leave the compound. LT, we've got a problem, Williams called from her overwatch position. I'm seeing lights in the valley below. Looks like vehicles moving in our direction. Morrison moved to a position where he could see into the valley. Through his night vision, he could make out at least 6 sets of headlights winding up the mountain road toward their location. The Taliban reinforcements were approximately 30 minutes away, maybe less depending on how fast they could navigate the rough terrain. All teams were leaving now, Morrison announced. Same formation as the approach, but double-time movement. Rodriguez, Williams bound back to us, and we'll move as a single unit. The SEALs quickly gathered their equipment and any useful intelligence materials from the compound. They had trained for rapid extractions, but moving quickly through mountain terrain at night was dangerous even for elite soldiers. Chun, take point and get us back to the extraction point, Morrison ordered. Best possible speed while maintaining security. The team began moving back along the narrow mountain path they had used to approach the compound. Behind them, they could see the headlights getting closer as the Taliban vehicles climbed toward the compound. How long until the vehicles reached the compound? Morrison asked Williams, who was monitoring their rear. Maybe 25 minutes, LT. But they'll see the bodies and know we were here. They'll start searching for us immediately. Morrison calculated their options as the team moved through the difficult terrain. Their extraction point was 8 kilometers away, and the rough mountain terrain meant they couldn't maintain their current pace for the entire distance. The Taliban searchers would have local knowledge of the area and could potentially cut off their escape routes. Hassan, what's the likelihood of additional enemy forces in this area? Hi. LT Nasir wouldn't have just one safe house. There are probably Taliban units scattered throughout these mountains, and they'll all be looking for us once word gets out. The situation was becoming more dangerous by the minute. Morrison's team was deep in enemy territory, carrying valuable intelligence, but facing increasing enemy pressure. Their extraction helicopter wouldn't arrive for another 6 hours, and they needed to find a defensible position where they could wait safely. Chun, look for a good hide position where we can establish overwatch, and call for early extraction, Morrison ordered. Chun slowed their pace and began examining the terrain more carefully, looking for natural defensive positions. The mountain offered plenty of hiding places, but most of them could be easily surrounded by superior numbers of enemy fighters. LT, there's a ridge line about 2 kilometers ahead, Chun reported. Good sight lines in all directions, multiple escape routes, and natural cover. Might be our best option for waiting it out. Morrison agreed, and the team altered their route toward the ridge position. As they moved, the sound of vehicle engines grew louder behind them, indicating that the Taliban forces had reached the compound and discovered the bodies. They know we're here now, Morrison told his team. Expect pursuit. Everyone stay alert and ready to fight. The SEALs reached the ridge position just as the first search teams began moving up the mountain behind them. Morrison positioned his men in a defensive circle with overlapping fields of fire. They had enough ammunition for a sustained firefight, but not enough to hold off dozens of attackers indefinitely. Overwatch, can you see any movement down there? Morrison asked Rodriguez, who had set up his machine gun with a clear view of their back trail. Negative on visual contact, but I can hear them moving around down there. Sounds like a lot of people, LT. Morrison checked his radio and attempted to contact their headquarters for emergency extraction. The mountains interfered with radio communications, but he managed to establish weak contact with their tactical operations center. Guardian Base, this is Bravo 7, Morrison said into his radio. We need immediate extraction at grid November 74952. Heavy enemy contact expected. The radio crackled with static before a voice responded. Bravo 7, Guardian Base. Extraction assets are 4 hours out. Can you maintain position until then? Morrison looked at his men and considered their tactical situation. 4 hours was a long time to hold a position against superior numbers of enemy fighters who knew the terrain better than they did. Guardian Base, we'll do our best. Be advised, we have valuable intelligence materials that need to reach friendly forces. Roger, Bravo 7. Do whatever you need to do to protect those materials and your team. Help is coming. The radio went silent, leaving Morrison's team alone on the mountainside with enemy forces closing in around them. The sun would rise in less than 3 hours, making their position visible to any Taliban fighters in the area. They needed to be ready for the fight of their lives. The first Taliban search team appeared on the trail below, just as the eastern sky began showing the faint gray light of approaching dawn. Morrison watched through his scope as 8 fighters moved in a loose formation. Their AK-47s ready, but their discipline poor. They were making too much noise and bunching together, mistakes that would cost them dearly. Contact, 200 meters southeast, Rodriguez whispered into his radio. 8 tangos moving in formation along our approach route. Morrison studied the enemy movement through his binoculars. These weren't the same casual militia fighters they had encountered earlier. These men moved with more purpose and better equipment. Probably Nazir's personal security team, searching for the Americans who had attacked their compound. Williams, Chun, can you see any other movement in the area? Morrison asked. Negative. Williams reported from her position on the northern edge of their defensive perimeter. But the terrain's broken up pretty bad. Could be more teams moving that we can't see yet. Chun confirmed the same from his eastern overwatch position. The Taliban were smart enough to use the rough mountain terrain to mask their movements, which meant Morrison's team might be facing more enemies than they could currently detect. The SEAL commander made a tactical decision. We let this first team pass. They don't know exactly where we are yet, and engaging them will give away our position to any other search teams in the area. Morrison's team remained hidden among the rocks as the first Taliban search team moved past their position. The enemy fighters were focused on the trail ahead, apparently believing the Americans were still moving toward the extraction point rather than hiding nearby. 20 minutes after the first team disappeared over a ridge, a second group appeared. This team was larger, 12 fighters with better equipment, and more disciplined movement. Morrison recognized the profile of night vision goggles on several of the men, which meant they had captured or purchased modern equipment from somewhere. This group looks more dangerous, Morrison observed. Professional movement, good spacing, and they've got night vision. Hassan studied the second group through his scope. LT, that's definitely Nazir's security team. I recognize two of those guys from intelligence photos. The tall one with the beard is Mahmoud Kasser, Nazir's chief bodyguard. The other one is probably his brother, Abdul. The professional search team moved more carefully than the first group, stopping frequently to examine the ground for tracks and studying the terrain for possible hiding places. They were clearly experienced hunters who knew how to track prey through difficult country. They're going to find our trail eventually, Thompson observed. These guys know what they're doing. Morrison agreed. The professional search team would backtrack and examine every possible hiding place until they found the Americans. The SEAL team's only advantages were superior training, better equipment, and a strong defensive position. Contact headquarters again, Morrison told Williams. See if we can get that extraction moved up. Williams tried several times to raise their tactical operations center, but couldn't establish clear communication through the mountain terrain. The weak radio signals that did get through were filled with static and broken up badly. I'm getting pieces of transmissions, Williams reported. Something about weather problems and flight delays. Can't make out the details. Morrison felt the situation deteriorating rapidly. His team was outnumbered, cut off from support, and facing increasingly organized enemy forces. The intelligence materials they carried were valuable enough that the Taliban would commit significant resources to recovering them. Movement to the west, Coleman reported from his position. Looks like another search team, maybe 6 or 7 fighters. Morrison now had confirmation that multiple Taliban units were converging on their area. The enemy was conducting a coordinated search operation, which meant someone was directing their movement from a central command position. We're going to have to fight our way out, Morrison told his team. The Taliban know we're in this area, and they're not going to give up looking. Better to engage them on our terms than wait for them to surround us completely. Rodriguez shifted his machine gun to cover the most likely enemy approach routes. LT, I've got good fields of fire on 3 directions from this position. If we're going to make a stand, this is a good place for it. Morrison studied the terrain around their position one more time. The ridge provided excellent defensive advantages, but it also limited their escape options. If the Taliban brought enough fighters into the area, even the best defensive position could be overwhelmed. Chin, what's the shortest route back to the extraction point? Morrison asked. Chin consulted his map and GPS device. About 6 kilometers if we go straight down the western slope, but that's really rough terrain. Safer route is back the way we came, but that's where most of the search teams are operating. Morrison weighed their options. Fighting through the search teams would be dangerous, but might be their only chance of reaching the extraction point. Waiting for the scheduled pickup time meant giving the Taliban more time to bring additional forces into the area. The decision was made for him when Hassan spotted movement on the northern approach to their position. Contact north, 400 meters. Large group, looks like 20-plus fighters moving in extended formation. Morrison grabbed his binoculars and studied the northern approach. Through the growing daylight, he could see a substantial Taliban force moving up the mountainside in a coordinated sweep pattern. These weren't casual militia fighters. This was a serious military operation designed to trap and eliminate his team. That's it, Morrison said. We move now, before they get close enough to pin us down. Rodriguez, Williams, prepare to provide covering fire. Everyone else, get ready to move fast. The SEAL team quickly gathered their equipment and prepared for a fighting withdrawal from their position. Morrison planned to use Rodriguez's machine gun to suppress the Taliban forces while the rest of the team moved toward the extraction point. On my mark, Rodriguez opens up on the northern group, Morrison explained. Everyone else bounds back 50 meters and sets up the next fire position. We'll leapfrog back toward the extraction point, fighting the whole way if necessary. Morrison was about to give the signal to begin their withdrawal when Park's voice cut through the radio traffic. "Wait, LT, something's wrong. Those guys to the north just went aground all at once. Like they got a warning or something." Morrison studied the northern Taliban force through his binoculars. Park was right. The entire group had suddenly dropped into cover positions as if they had received a radio warning about danger. But Morrison's team hadn't fired a shot or given away their position. "Chun, do you see anything that might have spooked them?" Chun scanned the surrounding terrain with his scope, but couldn't identify any immediate threats. "Negative, LT, but something definitely got their attention." Suddenly, the sharp crack of a high-powered rifle echoed across the mountainside. One of the Taliban fighters in the northern group jerked backward and fell motionless. The sound came from somewhere high above Morrison's position, but he couldn't identify the source. "Sniper fire," Rodriguez announced. "But that's not one of ours." Another shot cracked across the valley, and a second Taliban fighter dropped. The remaining enemy forces scrambled for better cover, shouting to each other in Pashto as they tried to locate the source of the deadly accurate fire. Morrison felt a mixture of relief and confusion. Someone was engaging the Taliban forces, but it wasn't anyone from his team. The shots were coming from an elevated position somewhere above their ridge line, and the accuracy suggested a professional sniper with excellent equipment. "Hassan, can you understand what they're saying?" Hassan listened to the Taliban radio chatter for several seconds. "They're panicking, LT talking about a ghost sniper who appeared out of nowhere. They're trying to coordinate a response, but they don't know where the shots are coming from." A third shot echoed across the mountains, and another Taliban fighter fell. The mysterious sniper was systematically eliminating key targets in the enemy force, creating chaos and confusion among the search teams. "LT, the Southern search team is pulling back," Williams reported. "Looks like they're regrouping about 800 meters out." Morrison realized that the sniper intervention had given his team an unexpected opportunity. The Taliban forces were reacting to the new threat rather than continuing their search for the Americans, which meant Morrison's team might be able to move toward the extraction point without fighting through multiple enemy positions. "Chun, plot a route that takes advantage of this confusion," Morrison ordered. "We move now while they're distracted." The SEAL team began moving down the western slope of the ridge, using the rocky terrain to mask their movement. Behind them, they could hear more sniper fire and the increasingly frantic radio chatter of Taliban forces trying to respond to the unexpected threat. Morrison tried to identify the sniper's position as his team moved, but the shots seemed to be coming from multiple locations high on a mountainside. Either there was more than one sniper, or this person was moving between shooting positions with incredible speed and skill. "Williams, can you see any muzzle flashes or other signs of our guardian angel?" Williams scanned the high ground with her scope, but couldn't locate the sniper. "Negative, LT, whoever this is. They're either very well concealed or shooting from positions we can't see from here." The mysterious sniper continued engaging Taliban targets as Morrison's team moved toward the extraction point. Each shot was precise and deadly, targeting what appeared to be leaders and heavy weapons operators in the enemy forces. The psychological effect was devastating. The Taliban fighters were spending more time looking for cover than searching for the Americans. Morrison's radio crackled with an incoming transmission. "American team, this is Overwatch. Do you copy?" Morrison grabbed his radio quickly. "Overwatch, this is Bravo 7 Actual. Identify yourself." "Bravo 7. I'm a friendly sniper providing assistance. Continue moving toward your extraction point. I'll keep the bad guys busy." The voice was female, calm, and professional, with a slight southern accent. Morrison felt relief flood through him, but also curiosity about who this mysterious helper was and how she had found his team in the vast Afghanistan mountains. "Overwatch, what's your unit and authorization?" Morrison asked. "That's classified, Bravo 7. Just know that I'm here to help get you home safely. Those intelligence materials you're carrying are too important to lose." Morrison exchanged glances with his men. Whoever this sniper was she knew about their mission and the intelligence materials they had recovered. That suggested official backing, but from what unit or agency? Overwatch, how did you know about our situation? Multiple sources, Bravo 7. Your radio transmissions were intercepted, and satellite imagery showed Taliban forces converging on your position. Someone decided you needed backup. Another sniper shot echoed across the valley, followed by confused shouting from the Taliban forces. The mysterious Overwatch was systematically dismantling the enemy search operation while Morrison's team moved towards safety. How many hostiles are you tracking? Morrison asked. I count 43 enemy fighters in 6 separate groups, Overwatch replied. But more vehicles are moving up the valley road. You got maybe 2 hours before this place is crawling with Taliban reinforcements. Morrison checked his watch. The extraction helicopter was still 3 hours away, which meant his team needed to find another hiding place or continue fighting until the pickup arrived. Either option was dangerous with enemy reinforcements approaching. Overwatch, can you provide continued support until our extraction arrives? Affirmative, Bravo 7. I'm positioned where I can cover multiple approach routes to your extraction point. Just keep moving and let me handle the pursuit. Morrison's team continued their movement down the mountain slope, staying in communication with their mysterious protector. Every few minutes, another sniper shot would ring out, usually followed by sounds of confusion from the Taliban search teams. LT, whoever this is, she's incredibly good, Rodriguez observed. Those are 1,000-meter shots minimum, and she's hitting moving targets in difficult terrain. Morrison agreed. The sniper's performance suggested elite-level training and equipment far beyond what most military units possessed. This was someone with exceptional skills operating from carefully chosen positions with perfect fields of fire. Hassan, what are the Taliban forces saying now? Hassan listened to the enemy radio traffic. They're calling for air support and heavy weapons. LT, somebody's really scared of our sniper friend. They're also reporting multiple casualties and requesting permission to withdraw from the area. The psychological warfare aspect of sniper operations was working perfectly. A single skilled sniper was creating the impression of a much larger force, causing the Taliban commanders to reconsider their aggressive pursuit of Morrison's team. Overwatch, be advised that enemy forces are calling for air support, Morrison transmitted. Copy that, Bravo 7. Taliban doesn't have much air capability in this region, but they might get some helicopter support from Pakistan. I'll watch for aerial threats. Morrison's team reached a small plateau about halfway to their extraction point, where they could rest briefly and reassess their situation. From this position, they had good visibility of the terrain they had crossed and could see the continued effects of the sniper's intervention. Chun, how much farther to the extraction point? About 3 kilometers, LT mostly downhill from here, but will be exposed crossing that valley in the last kilometer. Morrison studied the terrain ahead through his binoculars. The final approach to the extraction point would require crossing open ground with limited cover, making his team vulnerable to observation and fire from enemy forces. Overwatch, can you provide Overwatch coverage for our final movement to the extraction point? Negative on direct coverage, Bravo 7. But I can keep the pursuit team suppressed while you make your run. You'll be on your own for the last kilometer. Morrison accepted the limitation. The mysterious sniper had already done more than enough to help his team escape from what should have been a fatal situation. Whatever her background, she was clearly a professional who understood the tactical situation perfectly. Williams, try to contact headquarters again. We need confirmation on extraction timing and location. Williams worked with the radio for several minutes before establishing partial contact with their tactical operations center. Bravo 7, Guardian Base. Extraction delayed due to weather. New pickup time is 0800 hours, same location. Morrison checked his watch. It was nearly 0630 hours, which gave them 90 minutes to reach the extraction point and establish security for the helicopter's arrival. With continued sniper support suppressing the Taliban pursuit, they might actually make it. Guardian Base, be advised we have friendly sniper support in the area. Call sign Overwatch. Ensure extraction team is aware of friendly fire positions. Roger, Bravo 7. We'll coordinate with all friendly assets in your area. Morrison wondered if headquarters knew about the mysterious sniper or if Overwatch was operating independently. Either way, her intervention had saved his team from almost certain destruction, and he was grateful regardless of her official status. All teams, prepare to move to the extraction point, Morrison announced. Final push starts now. The SEAL team resumed their movement toward the helicopter pickup zone, staying in radio contact with Overwatch as she continued to engage Taliban pursuit teams. The sound of sniper fire had become a constant background noise, punctuated by the frustrated radio chatter of enemy forces unable to locate their tormentor. As they approached the final valley crossing, Morrison could see the extraction point in the distance. It was a flat area barely large enough for a helicopter to land, surrounded by rocky outcrops that would provide defensive positions if necessary. Getting there alive was still the challenge. The valley crossing stretched before Morrison's team like a death trap, 800 meters of open ground with scattered boulders providing the only cover. Through his binoculars, Morrison could see movement on the ridges surrounding the extraction point. Despite the sniper's devastating intervention, Taliban forces were still maneuvering to cut off the Americans' escape route. Overwatch, we're about to begin the valley crossing, Morrison transmitted. Can you see any enemy positions that might threaten our movement? Bravo 7. I count 12 hostiles in the eastern ridge, approximately 600 meters from your route. Another 8 on the western side, but they're farther out. I'll engage the eastern group first. Morrison watched as the mysterious sniper began systematically engaging targets on the eastern ridge. Each shot was followed by the distinctive crack of a high-powered rifle and the inevitable cry of wounded or dying Taliban fighters. The remaining enemy forces quickly sought deeper cover, giving Morrison's team a narrow window of opportunity. Move out, Morrison ordered. Bounds of 50 meters, Overwatch intervals. Williams and Rodriguez, you're first up. The SEAL medic and machine gunner sprinted across the first section of open ground while their teammates provided covering fire from concealed positions. They reached a cluster of boulders and immediately established Overwatch for the next group to move. Set, Williams reported breathlessly. Morrison and Hassan made the next bound, running hard across the exposed terrain while scanning for threats. The weight of their equipment and the thin mountain air made the sprint exhausting, but adrenaline drove them forward. They dove behind cover just as Taliban fighters on the western ridge opened fire. Bullets cracked overhead and sparked off the rocks around their position. Morrison could hear the distinctive sound of AK-47 fire mixed with the deeper reports of hunting rifles and captured military weapons. The Taliban forces were finally beginning to coordinate their response despite the sniper's interference. Overwatch, we're taking fire from the western ridge, Morrison reported. I see them, Bravo 7. Engaging now. 3 quick shots echoed across the valley, and the enemy fire from the western ridge stopped abruptly. Morrison raised his head carefully and saw several Taliban fighters dragging wounded companions away from exposed positions. The mysterious sniper's marksmanship was breaking up every enemy attempt to establish effective firing positions. Chun, Thompson, Coleman, your turn, Morrison ordered. The 3 SEALs made their bound successfully, reaching a depression in the ground that provided good cover from observation. Park and Vega followed, completing the first phase of the valley crossing. Morrison's team was now halfway to the extraction point, but the most dangerous part lay ahead. The final 400 meters to the helicopter landing zone offered almost no cover except for a dry stream bed that ran roughly parallel to their intended route. Using the stream bed would provide concealment, but would also channel them into a predictable path that enemy forces could easily target. LT, I'm seeing movement near the extraction point, Chen reported from his advanced position. Looks like 6 or 8 tangos trying to set up an ambush. Morrison studied the landing zone through his scope. Chen was right. Taliban fighters were moving into positions that would allow them to engage the helicopter when it arrived. The enemy might not be able to prevent the Americans from reaching the extraction point, but they could potentially shoot down the rescue aircraft. Overwatch. We have hostiles moving into the extraction zone. Morrison transmitted. Can you engage targets in that area? Negative, Bravo 7. That area is outside my effective range. You'll have to clear it yourselves. For the first time since the sniper intervention began, Morrison's team would have to fight their own battle. The mysterious Overwatch had brought them this far, but the final phase of their escape would depend on their own skills and equipment. Rodriguez, set up your machine gun with Overwatch on the extraction point. Morrison ordered. Everyone else, we're going to assault through that stream bed and clear the landing zone before the helicopter arrives. Morrison checked his watch. They had 40 minutes before the scheduled extraction time, which should be enough to reach the landing zone and eliminate the Taliban ambush team. The bigger concern was whether additional enemy forces would arrive before the helicopter could complete the pickup. Williams, try to contact the extraction aircraft. Give them an update on the tactical situation and warn them about possible ground fire. Williams worked with the radio while Morrison organized his assault team. The stream bed would allow them to approach within 100 meters of the extraction point without being observed, but the final assault would have to be conducted across open ground under direct fire. Guardian Base, this is Bravo 7. Williams transmitted. Be advised, extraction zone is contested. Ground fire probable during pickup. Request gunship support if available. The radio crackled with static before a response came through. Bravo 7, Guardian Base. Extraction aircraft is en route with escort gunships. ETA, 35 minutes. Can you secure the landing zone? Morrison felt a surge of relief. Helicopter gunships would be able to suppress enemy forces around the extraction point and provide covering fire during the pickup. His team just needed to hold out for 35 more minutes. Guardian Base, affirmative. We can secure the LZ. Just get here fast. Morrison's team moved into the stream bed and began their final approach to the extraction point. The dry creek bed provided excellent concealment from enemy observation, but the rocky bottom made movement difficult and noisy. Each SEAL had to watch their footing carefully to avoid twisted ankles or equipment damage. Contact ahead, Chen whispered from his point position. 2 tangos in the stream bed, approximately 50 meters forward. Morrison moved up to Chen's position and studied the enemy fighters through his night vision. 2 Taliban soldiers were using the same stream bed as a concealed approach route to the extraction point. They appeared to be carrying RPGs, which could pose a serious threat to the incoming helicopter. Take them quietly, Morrison ordered. Chun and Hassan moved forward with knives drawn, using the irregular terrain to mask their approach. The Taliban fighters were focused on reaching the extraction point and didn't notice the 2 SEALs until it was too late. Both enemies were eliminated without making a sound. Morrison's team continued moving up the stream bed until they were within assault distance of the extraction point. Through gaps in the creek bank, Morrison could see Taliban fighters moving into ambush positions around the helicopter landing zone. He counted at least 8 enemy soldiers, all armed with automatic weapons, and positioned to engage the aircraft from multiple angles. Here's the plan, Morrison told his team quietly. Rodriguez establishes overwatch from the creek bank with clear fields of fire on the landing zone. Rest of us assault in 2 teams, Chun, Hassan, and Williams take the eastern positions, Thompson, Coleman, Park, and I take the western side. Vega stays with Rodriguez to provide security. Morrison checked his watch again. 28 minutes until the helicopter arrived. His team needed to eliminate the ambush and establish security around the landing zone before the aircraft appeared. Everyone ready? Morrison asked. His SEALs nodded silently. They had performed similar operations countless times in training and combat. The Taliban fighters around the landing zone were about to discover why SEAL teams were considered among the world's most elite military units. Execute, Morrison ordered. Rodriguez's machine gun opened up from the creek bank, sending long bursts of accurate fire into the Taliban positions. Enemy fighters dove for cover as heavy bullets shredded their concealment and forced them away from their prepared ambush sites. Morrison's assault teams moved out of the stream bed simultaneously, approaching the enemy positions from two directions while Rodriguez's suppressive fire kept the Taliban fighters pinned down. The assault was over in less than 3 minutes, with all 8 enemy soldiers eliminated through a combination of precise rifle fire and close-quarters combat. Landing zone secure, Morrison reported to his team. Establish perimeter security and prepare for helicopter arrival. The SEALs quickly positioned themselves around the landing zone, creating overlapping fields of fire that would protect the extraction aircraft from any remaining enemy forces in the area. Morrison felt cautiously optimistic for the first time since the mission began. Bravo 7, this is Guardian Base, the radio crackled. Extraction aircraft is 5 minutes out. Pop smoke to mark your position. Coleman pulled out a smoke grenade and activated it, sending a column of green smoke into the morning air. The signal would help the helicopter pilots locate the landing zone and confirm that it was controlled by friendly forces. Guardian Base, green smoke is up, Morrison reported. Landing zone is secure and ready for pickup. Through the growing daylight, Morrison could hear the distinctive sound of approaching helicopters. 2 sets of rotor noise meant the extraction aircraft was accompanied by a gunship escort, which would provide covering fire if necessary. Overwatch, this is Bravo 7. Morrison transmitted to the mysterious sniper who had saved his team. Extraction aircraft is inbound. We want to thank you for everything you've done. You're welcome, Bravo 7. Glad I could help. Now get on that helicopter and get home safely. Morrison still didn't know who the sniper was or why she had intervened at exactly the right moment, but he would be forever grateful for her deadly accurate support. Without her intervention, his entire team would probably have been killed or captured by the Taliban search forces. The extraction helicopter appeared over the eastern ridge, followed closely by an Apache gunship that immediately began scanning the surrounding area for threats. The transport aircraft circled the landing zone once before beginning its approach, with the pilot carefully evaluating the terrain and security situation. Bravo 7, this is Rescue 1. The helicopter pilot transmitted. I see your green smoke. Landing zone appears secure. Prepare for pickup. Morrison's team gathered their equipment and prepared to board the aircraft. The intelligence materials they had recovered from the Taliban compound were safely secured in waterproof pouches that Thompson carried. Despite the failed capture of their primary target, the mission had still produced valuable information. The helicopter touched down in a cloud of dust and debris, with its crew chief already manning the door gun and scanning for threats. Morrison SEALs ran toward the aircraft in practice formation, with Rodriguez providing rear security until the last possible moment. All aboard, the crew chief shouted over the rotor noise. Let's get out of here. Morrison was the last SEAL to board the helicopter, taking one final look at the mountainous terrain where his team had nearly been destroyed. Somewhere up in those rocky heights, a mysterious sniper was watching their departure, having saved 8 American lives through courage and exceptional marksmanship. The helicopter lifted off quickly and began climbing away from the landing zone. Through the aircraft's windows, Morrison could see Taliban vehicles racing up the mountain roads toward the extraction point, arriving just minutes too late to prevent the Americans' escape. Bravo 7, Guardian Base. The radio transmitted as they gained altitude. Confirm all personnel aboard and status of mission materials. Guardian Base, this is Bravo 7 Actual, Morrison replied. All 8 personnel aboard and healthy. Mission materials are secure. Primary target was not captured, but significant intelligence was recovered. Morrison settled back in his seat and looked at his exhausted team members. Chin was already asleep, his head resting against the helicopter's vibrating wall. Williams was checking everyone's equipment to ensure nothing important had been left behind. Rodriguez was still alert, watching the terrain below, for any signs of enemy activity. "LT, who do you think that sniper was?" Park asked over the intercom. Morrison shook his head. "Could be anyone Special Forces, CIA, Delta Force, maybe even a contractor. Whoever she was, she saved our lives." Hassan looked up from cleaning his rifle. "Think we'll ever find out who she was?" "Maybe," Morrison replied. "But does it really matter? She was there when we needed her, and that's what counts." Thompson secured the intelligence materials more carefully as the helicopter encountered some turbulence. "These documents better be worth what we went through to get them." Morrison agreed. The intelligence materials would be analyzed by experts who would determine their value, but he suspected they contained important information about Taliban operations in the region. Even if they hadn't captured Nasir himself, the mission might still contribute to saving other American lives. As the helicopter flew toward the safety of their forward operating base, Morrison composed his after-action report in his mind. The mission had encountered unexpected complications, but his team had adapted and overcome every challenge through training, teamwork, and the timely intervention of an unknown ally. The mysterious sniper who called herself Overwatch would remain a puzzle, but Morrison hoped their paths would cross again someday. He wanted to personally thank the woman who had saved his team and ask her about the incredible marksmanship he had witnessed during their escape. For now, though, Morrison was content to watch the Afghan landscape pass beneath their helicopter and know that all 8 members of his team were returning home safely. In the dangerous world of special operations, successful extractions were never guaranteed, and Morrison never took them for granted. The sun was fully up now, painting the mountains in shades of gold and brown that reminded Morrison why some people found Afghanistan beautiful despite its dangers. Somewhere in those mountains, Taliban forces were probably still searching for the American team that had vanished like ghosts, leaving only bodies and confusion behind. Rodriguez caught Morrison's attention and pointed toward the eastern ridge where the sniper had been operating. "LT, you think she's still up there?" Morrison looked toward the high ground where Overwatch had provided such devastating covering fire. The rocky terrain could hide a dozen snipers, and he couldn't detect any sign of human presence from the helicopter's altitude. "Probably long gone by now," Morrison replied. "Someone that good doesn't stick around after the shooting stops." But as their helicopter disappeared over the next ridge, Morrison couldn't shake the feeling that the mysterious sniper was still up there somewhere, watching over other American teams who might need her help. In a war where the enemy could appear anywhere at any time, it was comforting to know that exceptional warriors like Overwatch were watching from the shadows. The radio crackled one final time as they approached their base. "Bravo 7, Guardian Base. Well done. Intelligence officials are waiting to debrief you on arrival. Get some rest. You've earned it." Morrison smiled as he looked at his sleeping team members. They had survived another mission in the endless war against terrorism, and they had brought back valuable intelligence that might save other lives. Most importantly, they were all coming home alive, thanks in large part to a guardian angel with a sniper rifle who had appeared exactly when they needed her most. The helicopter began its final approach to the forward operating base, where hot food, secure communications, and safe bunks awaited Morrison's exhausted team. The mission was officially over, but the memory of their mysterious savior would stay with each SEAL for the rest of their careers. Somewhere in the mountains behind them, Overwatch was probably already planning her next intervention, ready to appear whenever American forces needed her deadly accurate support. Morrison hoped she would continue to watch over other teams with the same skill and courage she had shown during their desperate escape. As the helicopter touched down at their base, Morrison felt a deep sense of gratitude for the unknown warrior who had saved his team. Whatever her name, whatever her unit, she exemplified the finest traditions of American military service, appearing when needed most, asking nothing in return, and disappearing back into the shadows when her work was done.